back to The Big Picture. It's 9:23 on your Monday morning, and joining us, Jay Fox with the Ohio News Network.
Good morning to both of you.
Happy Monday.
My partner in crime from the weekend.
Yeah, you guys had fun.
We did.
How many steps did you walk? 5 miles, 30,000
The
steps?
calculation is off the charts because as soon as it was over, we walked somewhere else.
Yeah, and before we were walking around setting up.
Correct. So we walked a lot of steps.
Good.
It was fun.
Good, good stuff. Well, we're happy to have you this morning, Jay.
Thank you.
And we're talking about a new court ruling that late last week makes it possible for social media parental notification act. That we've talked about this a lot, just like at 10 TV with like our coverage. But this is moving forward now. So Jay, explain to us a little bit more about this and kind of how parents are now able to play a bigger role in protecting their children online.
This was basically on pause for years. And the reason why was Governor Mike DeWine signed the act into law when he signed the fiscal year 2024 budget back in July of 2023. But before the act could even go into effect, in January of 24, it was blocked by a U.S. district judge by the name of Algernon Marbley. That is quite a name for a judge. That was followed by a lawsuit. That's what prompted this, a tech trade group called Net Choice. Then late Thursday, the 6th Court in Cincinnati vacated the injunction stating that Net Choice had failed to prove that the act was what they claimed, which they claimed it was unconstitutional. So now the gloves are off and it can move forward.
And again, why does this take so long?
Okay, so they put the pause on it. Here's what the act does. And this is why Net Choice is up in arms. The Social Media Parental Notification Act applies to children under the age of 16 here in Ohio. The act requires operators of social media and gaming platforms to obtain verifiable parental consent before a minor can create a new account. It also requires those platforms to provide their privacy guidelines to the parents, and it features an 11-factor checklist to determine if a website can, and I'm quoting here, reasonably be anticipated to be accessed by children and is subject to the law. So that's a lot of work for Net Choice and their friends.
Yeah, I think about 2-factor identification, an 11-point checklist. Wow.
Right. I mean, so our new Ohio Attorney General, Andy Wilson, says this is great for Ohio families. And he believes that Ohio parents should control what their children see online. But as you can imagine, Net Choice, which represents Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and the like, they argue that it threatens online speech and privacy.
So what about teens, parents? I mean,
well,
I imagine they have different opinions.
You can just imagine what the teens think. They're like, get out of my business.
Right. They're so private.
They were surveyed. They oppose the law because they say it restricts their independence and invades their privacy. But it gets a little bit deeper, and this is where I found it really interesting. Gen Z and younger users who use social media platforms for creative outlets, like TikTok, for example, say it stalls their ambitions. Teens specifically oppose their parents having access to their digital footprint. Minority teens say it takes away their safe spaces and group chats, cutting them off from their support networks.
So it does go deeper.
For the teens.
Yeah. So parents, what do they think? I mean,
you would think parents would be all about this. They're not necessarily all about it. It's divided. Some say it's precisely what we need to protect our children from human trafficking risks, pornography, drugs, radical ideologies. But some believe it promotes the risk of identity theft and, more importantly, creates a permanent and irreversible divide between parents and children with regard to the issue of trust. That's something that is hard to unpack.
It's loaded because it's complicated and deep. And it does feel like your phone is personal because you have all your bank information. I mean, the list goes on. You've like all these apps on there. But I
When you
know
have
with
kids,
kids,
yeah,
it's like
it's
even harder because then it just opens up the web. I mean, Jay,
truthfully,
you're a parent.
the
What,
minute
like-
your child turns
Right.
12, they shut their bedroom door and they don't want you as a parent in their business at all. And yes, I have two daughters.
Yeah.
They were both the same way.
Yeah, you know all about it. So
Yeah.
what happens next with this?
So it has to be made official. The act heads to federal court to that same judge who they've said, now you have to officially reverse your policy and lift the blockage. Then what's expected to happen is Net Choice will appeal on behalf of Meta and all of the others. It will require all social media platforms in the interim to implement age verification pop-ups. So what that means is that they all have to rewrite their algorithms for the state of Ohio.
Oh,
And
a lot of work for them.
even worse for them, the Ohio victory will likely cause other states to follow suit.
Might
yeah.
as well just write it now for everyone.
Such
So,
an interesting topic.
Imagine running,
Right.
Instagram or X or TikTok and having to somehow write an algorithm that just geofences the state of Ohio.
You know what?
Somebody's not happy, I guarantee it.
Yeah, I know, but there's people out there that can do it. Like that's an
Yeah.
option. You know what I mean?
It's
like
well
it's a
above my
guardrail.
pay grade.
Right,
Yeah.
for sure.
Not for
no,
me.
and it's interesting because the UK just basically banned all 16-year-olds and below from certain social media
Yes.
platforms, and this coming on the heels of that news is timely.
Well, and I think it's part of a greater movement to protect our children and also to make parents more accountable for what their children are doing. And as we know, tonight at Columbus City Council, they're going to talk about how much those parents should be responsible. And if they aren't responsible, there may be fines. And I'd like to see if that ends up happening in this situation as well. I'd be very curious.
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
lot of sides to it.
All right, Jay.